And Aruna Roy, who's resigned from the National Advisory Council, very close to Sonia Gandhi, and many are seeing her resignation as a reflection of the growing divide between the Congress party and the government, is joining me on the news hour. Ms. Aruna Roy, thank you very much. Well, despite criticizing the Prime Minister in your letter, you have said you are not upset with the Prime Minister, but you are upset with the government. Now, that's hardly a distinction. Why are you drawing that distinction? Is that distinction really there, or are you just being polite?
Yes, I do think they should be in a democracy, because I hope that decisions are not taken by a single person. That when the Prime Minister mouths a certain decision, then the government takes the decision. And I've always believed that in a democracy, by singling out individuals, we destroy the democratic spirit and the collective decision-making process that is implicit in a democracy.
No, isn't it strange, Ms. Aruna Roy, that you had the full backing of Sonia Gandhi, and despite that you say a small, vocal and powerful minority is, decides what the basic objectives of the MNREGA are. My question to you is, how can a small minority undermine what Sonia Gandhi backs? It's difficult to believe. You're saying a small minority in the government is undermining what Sonia Gandhi wants?
No, I don't think that's quite true, because I think the Advisory Council just advises.
Right.
I think, and the limits of that Advisory Council are that it can send forth recommendations and suggestions. But after that, whatever happens is left to the government. And in the case of many of these issues, government is a big monolith. And I don't think, despite the way it has been projected, that any single individual can run this country. It is run by different interests, by different interest groups, by different ideologies, which sometimes get together and sometimes don't. So, in a sense, if you look at the two main streams that have been deciding government policy, there is the growth agenda and there has been the anti-poverty agenda. And I think sometimes the growth agenda gets overwhelmingly persuasive and determines the issues. And in which case then the anti-poverty agendas get diminished in size. And I don't think it is related to any individual. I really do think it is the forces of too many factors, too many variables involved. I think would be making a big mistake.
Ms. Roy, do you think there have been high expectations from the NSC, despite it being just an advisory council, just because of Sonia Gandhi's presence and Sonia Gandhi's backing?
See, the thing is that if you want to locate the National Advisory Council in any kind of structure, then it has to be located in the pre-legislative process, because it doesn't, you have advisors to the Prime Minister, you have economic advisors of stature who in fact may even decide basic fundamental fiscal policy of the government. In the case of social policy, this has been the first effort to bring in voices from outside, to see how they think and what they feel are the priorities of numbers of people. So I think in the case of the National Advisory Council, if you want a structure to place it, it is in the structure of a pre-legislative decision-making body where issues come up and people discuss it to find exactly what opinions they may have. And it is not unanimous. The decisions are sometimes fraught with a lot of differences even within the National Advisory Council. Not everybody thinks the same. So the consensus of what comes out is then sent to government as something of an opinion. Drafts are sent. Those drafts change because the draft then is looked at by the government. And this is a process which is in place in many countries, including UK.
No, you say that Mrs. Gandhi's ability, and this is very important. I'm quoting you from this, from what you've said. You said Mrs. Sonia Gandhi's ability to push through has come down over the years as the government continues obstructing these policies with its techno-economic arguments. Now, Ms. Aruna Roy, many will find that hard to believe that Sonia Gandhi does not have enough influence to convince her own government. Are you saying Sonia Gandhi's influence over the Manmohan Singh government has come down over the years?
Let me put it like this. I just dislike discussing personalities.
No, but it's okay. It's a reality.
Political being to discuss personalities. Let's discuss trends. I think the growth agenda has become much more powerful in the last 2-3 years for various reasons than the anti-poverty social sector agenda. In the first UPA, it was more or less evenly balanced. So we got something for the anti-poverty agenda and we got something for the growth sector agenda. But in the second NAC, perhaps the growth agenda has been a much more powerful and persuasive part of the government. So the anti-poverty agenda, you just have to look at things that have not happened. You have the Right to Food Act not passed. You see the accountability legislations lying in Parliament, and whatever has gone to Parliament is mostly the responsibility of the government in power, but it's also the opposition which has not allowed and facilitated the passage of some of these bills. So as a Parliament, they have to rise beyond limited or restrictive interests of political loyalties to see what is of good to the nation. How can a right to food bill be stalled when you have so many millions of people hungry in this country,
no,
and
but
you
it's
have
not,
so much grain?
No, but Ms. Aruna Roy, it's not been stopped by the government. The government has been able to manage the Parliament. So my last question is to you, aren't you being too critical? You know, you say the government is on a honeymoon with the growth watch and is constantly obstructing the social agenda with financial, what were the words of it, financial and technical arguments. But Ms. Aruna Roy, realistically speaking, financial constraints are a consideration that no government in the world can afford to ignore, however much the political pressure is on the other side to ignore it.
Yeah, definitely there are financial constraints. There are always financial constraints, but there are also arguments. Look at the GDP tax ratio in this country. Look at the way in which we have not looked at and discussed fiscal policy in a manner in which we can raise extra resources. Why look at the income tax pattern? There are so many ways in which money can be raised. Even the private sector can, for instance, even in a case like pensions, all those people who employ unorganized sector workers of a particular kind should provide for their pensions in some way or the other, which should be sent to a kitty which then consolidates the amount and gives pensions. Because after all, you know, you have to look at the people and the unorganized sectors, people who contribute enormously to the economy.
But
So you can't just rub them off the seat.
No, certainly, but that's one point of view. And clearly your points of view don't match with the government. And that's the bigger story. Aruna Roy, thank you very much for speaking to me on the News Hour tonight. Thank you.